Australia is the home to many different biker gangs. Experts even suggest that Australia has the highest number of bikies per capita in the entire world. The man we are discussing today stood at the helm of one of those notorious bikie gangs for several years. He was good friends with Australia's most wanted and richest criminal, but then, by pure chance, on a normal evening, he came across one of the biggest enemies at the airport. A brawl ensued that would change everything. This is the story of Mick Hawi. Mick Hawi, whose real name is Mahmoud, was born in Beirut, Lebanon, on the 29th of May 1980. At just 5 years old, Mick and his family fled from Lebanon and settled in Sydney, Australia. According to some, Mick had a meager childhood. In 1995, at age 15, he met his childhood sweetheart, Carolina Gonzalez, who he would marry in 2002 and have 2 children with. Mick was just 18 years old when he decided to join the Comancheros. Together with many other men with a Middle Eastern background, the Comancheros were an outlaw biker club, once founded by William Jock Ross back in 1968. Jock stood at the helm of the Comancheros for a long time, but people started to dislike his authoritarian leadership style. His leadership ended abruptly in 2002 when 22-year-old Mick, together with other young members, visited Jock's home. They allegedly beat him up, took his club colours, and even his Harley Davidson. Ever since that day, there was a new Comancheros leader, and his name was Mick Hawi, the national president and supreme commander. Other than a few driving offences, an offensive language charge, and being caught in possession of a restricted substance in 2005, Mick's record was relatively clean, at least in comparison to other bikies. But Mick definitely had a growing reputation within the underworld of Sydney. Together with the rest of the Comancheros, he was involved in plenty of illegal activities, such as drug smuggling, money laundering, and extortion. Anything to make money. In 2007, he luckily survived a shooting in which his car got shot. According to Mick, a bullet was lodged in the headrest of the car, inches away from where his head was. This attack was most likely a result of the rising tension between several bikie gangs. After this, Mick decided to roll with more protection and an armoured car. A year later, tensions would rise again, though this time fatal. It was a normal afternoon at Sydney Airport on the 22nd of March 2009. Just as any other day at the airport, passengers were on the move from and to their gates, ready to come and go. None of those people had a clue that one of the most secure and monitored public spaces in Australia was about to turn into a fighting ring. By chance, 5 Comancheros were on the same flights as Hells Angels president Derek Winnahu. While on board, both sides had allegedly called in reinforcements to come to the airport. Once at the airport, it spiraled out of control. In the terminal, at least 10 men engaged in a fight that seemed unstoppable by airport security. They had picked up the metal bollards used to divide people in lines as weapons. Those things can weigh up to 17 kilos each. A Hells Angel bikie named Anthony Zervas was knocked to the ground during the fight, after which several Comancheros members struck him multiple times on the head with the metal bollards. Anthony did not survive. At some point, both sides stopped fighting and fled the airport. Mick left the airport screaming something along the lines of, "Next time we see you, you're going to have bullet holes through you," towards Peter Zervas, the brother of Anthony. While others got arrested, Hawi fled the airport in a taxi and remained under the radar for a while. This airport brawl changed the way Australia looked at bikie gangs forever. This violent escalation was also the reason Strike Force Raptor was established, a police unit dedicated to targeting serious and organised crime among outlaw motorcycle gangs and other groups. Mick vanished after the brawl and remained on the run. His lawyer later issued a statement that Mick would honour the request to meet with detectives, and that's when he brought himself in. He was eventually found guilty for taking Hells Angels Anthony Zervas' life and was sentenced to a maximum of 28 years in prison with a non-parole period of 21 years. Some said Mick took the majority of the blame upon him to shield his fellow Comancheros from any trouble, which gained him a lot of respect. Then something unexpected happened in 2014. The NSW Court of Criminal Appeal set aside the conviction, and Mick was subsequently allowed to plead guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. He was sentenced to a maximum of 6 years and 2 months, with a minimum non-parole period of 3 years and 6 months. By 2015, he was released. Taking into account the time he'd already served, he was granted freedom, although He had to abide to 22 conditions, one of which was not being a Comanchero member anymore, or an outlaw bikie gang for that matter. These strict probation rules left little room for Mick to venture back into a life of crime, and he started to live a life under the radar with his family. Despite living under the radar and being the ex-president of the Comancheros, Mick always knew he still had plenty of enemies throughout Sydney. He frequently used to move with a security detail or in an armoured car, but on the 15th of February 2018, Mick had neither. That day, he went to the Fitness First gym in Rockdale, Sydney, a gym labelled as the longtime home of the Comancheros. Members of the Comancheros would frequently train there. Back in December 2008, they had even gotten into a massive brawl with a rival bikie gang. It involved around a dozen guys. They had used gym benches to hit each other and were taking pins out of machines to use them as knuckle dusters to fight, the then manager said. After his workout, Mick walked back to his car, which was parked right in front of the gym, not in an actual parking space, but no one would dare tell him to park elsewhere. It's just where he parked. Staff said they can't do anything about it, someone later said. Mick had just closed his door when only a few seconds later, someone ran up to the driver's side window, equipped his firearm, and shot at least 6 times from close range. Despite the shots being fired from such close range, Mick initially survived the attack. He was rushed to St. George Hospital in a critical condition, but eventually succumbed to his injuries. The shooter ran back to a grey Mercedes that sped off and was later found burned out. CCTV footage showed that the suspects ran through a neighborhood and hopped into a Toyota. Other than the burned out car, there was no immediate trace of the suspects, despite the police reacting quickly by ordering a helicopter to fly over the area of the crime scene. Assistant Commissioner Mal Lanyon said, "The full resources of the New South Wales Police have been deployed to investigate the matter. It will be a difficult investigation, I have no doubt. It's too early to determine a motive, but Mr. Hawi's history in organised crime will be considered. There will also be a major focus on preventing any retribution as a result of this incident regarding Mr. Hawi." Just like that, the once feared Comancheros president had his life taken. Many people showed their support at Mick's funeral. Several questions immediately arose after it happened. Who was the shooter? And maybe even more importantly, who could have ordered the hit? Police took the case extremely serious. Remember the airport brawl that led to Hells Angels' Anthony Zervas' passing? His mother, Frederica Bromwich, gave a rather interesting interview just 2 days after Mick's passing that offered no sympathy. During the interview, she said the following.
"Well, it is karma. Because what you do in life comes back to haunt you. You do good, you get good. You do bad, it'll come back and bite you."
You've obviously had years of suffering since Anthony was killed. You've suffered. How do you think Nick's family will be dealing with his death?
Well, now they'll know what I felt and what my family went through and what we're still going through. So now it's their turn. You can sort of say it's a bit of a relief. You know, eye for an eye, life for a life. He deserved it, but my son didn't deserve it. Yeah. A lot of people are happy that he's gone. It's just one filth gone from the face of this earth. And I don't feel sorry at all. No, Mick Hawi got what he deserved. And good on those boys that did it.
The interview led to a lot of mixed reactions, especially because she said, "Good on those boys who did it." Some understood her reaction, although many did not, saying that her sons also were not sweethearts themselves. Various theories started swirling around about the potential reason for the hit on Mick. He had made plenty of enemies along the way, being the former president of the Comancheros. Could it have been a rival bikie gang? Or maybe those close to the Hells Angels and Anthony Zervas who sought revenge? Or could it have come from within the Comancheros itself? That last theory was especially interesting. After Mick's arrest, the position of president of the Comancheros was left vacant. A man named Mark Buddle appointed himself as the president in 2009. Obviously, no one expected Mick to come back as soon as he did. When he came back, some say he was keen on taking his position and power back, but Mark Buddle was not looking to step down as the president. This supposedly caused friction amongst the two, and the Daily Telegraph wrote that the two had a massive clash weeks prior to the shooting. As a response to this theory, Assistant Commissioner Mao Lanyan said, "In reality, Buddle will be just one of many people and avenues of investigation, as Mick Hawi made plenty of enemies." It must be made absolutely clear that Mark has never been formally accused of being involved in the hit, thus also never faced any charges for it. It wasn't until August 2018 and later that NSW police managed to arrest 4 suspects for the shooting. Lone wolf bikie Yusuf Nazlioglu, who was suspected of pulling the trigger, was arrested together with Ahmad Dudar, who allegedly helped to get rid of a getaway car. Jamal El Jaidi, the suspected getaway driver, and Mustafa Salami, who allegedly helped tow and move around the cars used in the attack, were arrested later. None of the men pleaded guilty, and a long trial ensued. During one of the court sessions, the jurors were told that Yusuf became close with Mick after he was released from prison in 2015. However, the friendship quickly turned sour after 2 years. According to Mick's wife, Yusuf had embarrassed Mick and was rude to others during a fishing trip. Mick then ended the friendship, which caused Yusuf to get angry. He was angry, clenching his fists. He didn't want to talk to me anymore. His eyes were just bulging a little bit. He felt embarrassed, she said. Could this really have been the reason? We will never know, because despite there being significant footage and evidence, such as a balaclava in a getaway car with the suspected shooter's DNA, the court did not find the evidence sufficient and decided to do the unexpected in December 2020. Yusuf and Jamal were acquitted of their charges. Ahmad took a plea deal. Fast forward to June 27, 2022. Yusuf had just arrived home and was parking his car, when all of a sudden, a man ran up to him and fired several shots. Police rushed quickly to the scene, but the shooter had already fled in a silver car that was later found burned out. Yusuf was treated on the scene by paramedics and brought to the Westmead Hospital. He eventually did not make it and succumbed to his injuries. Many people's first thought was that this had to have something to do with Mick, though it was well known that Yusuf had plenty of enemies and knew someone, according to his own words, could knock him any day, any time. Superintendent Danny Doherty said, "Yusuf had conflicts with other groups and other organized crime syndicates, so we can't rule out a number of motives and a number of theories." 3 men were charged for the hit on his life, and none had anything to do with Mick Hawi. As of 2023, no one has been prosecuted for the hit on Mick Hawi. If you would like to see a video about the entire Comancheros bikie gang, be sure to let me know in the comments. As always, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It only takes a second, but immensely helps the channel. Thanks for watching.